Good morning, church. It's good to be back with you all again this morning. And the past few times I've been here, I feel like every sermon I use some kind of story or analogy about my children. And that makes sense because they're a big part of my life. They're a little bit part of it, right? They're a big part of it. Who has children? Has had children? Grandchildren? Who's got the most? Who's got all of them? Anybody have one child? One child? Okay, keep your hands up if you have two children. Okay, keep your hands up if you have three children. Keep your hands up if you have four children. Saw a lot of hands go down there. I saw one hand go up at four. You didn't at 1, 2, 3. Now you all of a sudden have four? What is that about? Something's going on. Quadruplets? That's crazy. Anybody have 5 children? 6? Okay, 5. Any more than 5? That's crazy. You got all the kids. Good for you. We have 4 kids. It was not a part of the plan. We had planned 3 in our grand design, and God said, you know what? Here's another one. And he actually just turned 1 this past Tuesday, which is crazy. And because we're still getting used to saying 4 kids instead of 3. But he just turned 1 Tuesday. I was thinking about this. I don't know if I've ever shared the story here. It's kind of fun story. When he was born, we were there. We were getting ready. Time had come. We were in the hospital room, and my wife Rachel is laying on the bed, and all we're doing is waiting for the doctor. The nurse said, "Hey, don't push. Nothing yet. Can't do anything yet." And we're like, "Well, sorry, the doctor. If the doctor's here or not, baby's coming." And nurse just kept saying, "Just wait, just wait, just wait." And eventually, the doctor does come in, and she kind of comes over, and she's just like, "Hey, great to meet you guys." She kind of does her final check-in things, and she goes, "It looks like we're not quite ready yet." I was like, "Okay, I don't know how you decide that, but we'll let you know, Doc." Anyway, the doctor said, "We're not quite ready yet," and anyway, she goes. I was asking her, I was just kind of kidding. I said, "Hey, Doc, do you care if, could I deliver the child instead?" And I've seen it 3 times before. I mean, how hard can it be? And the doctor says, well, let me ask you, what do you do for a living? I was like, "Well, I preach sometimes on the weekends, and I'm in franchise sales." And she goes, "Okay. Yeah, you sound qualified." And I was like, "I like that. Thank you." So she's like, "Sure, go ahead and put some gloves on." I was like, "Okay." She goes, "No, really?" I said, "For real? You'll let me, what do you mean? I can deliver the kid?" And she goes, "Yeah, go ahead." So I literally got to put gloves on. I washed my hands, got everything ready, put my gloves on. Doctor left for a little bit, came back in. She goes, "You ready?" I said, "I think so. I mean, I played baseball my whole life, took a lot of ground balls. I'm my hand-eye coordination okay. I think we'll be all right." And we did it. It's actually, here's a picture of me all ready to go. Do we have that one? Yeah, so there's me putting on my doctor gloves, snapping it like a doctor does, right? And we're getting all ready to go. And then here's some pictures of Rachel pushing and me delivering the bit. No, I'm just kidding. My wife would not be. You saw some heart stop there for a second, right? My goodness. But I actually, it was one of the coolest experiences of my life. I actually got to be the first one to receive my child, and we didn't know if it was a boy or a girl, and so I was the first one to be able to tell. I was like, "Oh, that's a boy for sure," and I named him Shepherd, and got to catch him and hand him straight to my wife. Incredible. She did all the actual work stuff, like the hard stuff and the gross stuff that no one wants to do, but I got to actually bring my child out, which was awesome. And they come quick, just so you know. But it was an incredible experience. So here's kind of why I share this, is because what we're going to be talking about today, today I wanted to go to Matthew 5, okay? Beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, or also we label it as the Beatitudes. The beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, I think there is a really fascinating picture of what's going on, okay, in the crowd that Jesus is talking to. Here's what I mean to say, is I think a lot of people treat their idea or concept of faith or a potential understanding or relationship to Jesus similar to how I might have treated being able to deliver my child. What I mean is, I think most people would never even think to ask or move forward with it because they already disqualify themselves. Nobody I know has ever asked a doctor if they could deliver their child. I think is because we naturally assume we're not qualified. And I think there's way too many people in this world that feel a very similar way when it comes to the idea of church and faith in Jesus. They already feel like they don't belong. They don't qualify. And I think what we see at the very beginning of Matthew 5, actually the very last part of Matthew 4, is this picture. So what I want to do is I want to read the first part of it to you, and I want you to notice the kinds of people that Jesus saw before him that very day. Okay? Here's a hint. It's not a bunch of religious people like we might see among us right now, to be honest. Here's what it says in chapter 4, verse 24. So just look at a couple verses before 5. Verse 24 says, "News about Jesus spread all over Syria, and people brought to him all who were ill with various diseases, those suffering severe pain, the demon-possessed, those having seizures, and the paralyzed." It's quite the crowd. I would envision probably pretty noisy and distracting, not well kept. And then he healed them. Large crowds from Galilee, and not even Galilee alone, large crowds also from the Decapolis. Oh, and also from Jerusalem, and also Judea and the region across the Jordan. People from all over the known world at this time are gathering to this location and followed him. So what Jesus is about to do here in the beginning of chapter 5, this Sermon on the Mount, he's not preaching to his apostles. He's preaching to a large crowd of, I think, a lot of people who would feel probably disqualified about this. They've heard this word of this potential Messiah coming someday. And if this is him, do they qualify too? And I think that's what they're wondering. If they too could potentially be included in this Messiah's kingdom. Maybe for some of you, that's you today. Maybe you've often wondered, could I also be included in that kingdom? And if that's the case, I think the very first thing Jesus says here to this crowd may also be a message for you today. So I want to invite you to lean in with eager anticipation, because that's what they did, with eager anticipation of what this miracle worker had to say about if there was a way for these outcasts, the oppressed, the poor, the tired, the hurting, the demon-possessed, the sinful people, to somehow they could also be included among the righteous. So this crowd takes a seat. Everyone goes silent. All of them lean in. And then Jesus begins to speak. Matthew chapter 5, he says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." I think the whole crowd goes, wait, what? Blessed are they, yeah, we've heard that before. Blessed are those. And then he says, the poor in spirit? Who? And he continues, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. 9 times Jesus pronounces what we call a beatitude. Okay? And 9 times the crowd is utterly shocked because what he's saying to them, it doesn't make any sense. What do you mean, Jesus? That those who are poor in spirit, that they are blessed? Because it sure doesn't feel that way. So if you're also sitting here wondering the same thing, what Jesus is talking about, let's break it down. Okay, the Greek word here for blessed is makarios, which can also be translated as, I've also heard it say, as how happy, okay? Maybe not blessed are, but how happy are, or how fortunate are. I've also heard someone say, think about it this way, in terms of congratulations. Kind of interesting concept. Congratulations to the poor in spirit. But in order to, I think, to really understand this word as best as possible, what I want to do is to, as best we can, try to approach it from maybe how a Jewish mindset or someone this time might have heard this word, okay? Help me out here. The New Testament, anyone know? What was it written in? What language was it written in? New Testament. Mostly, anyone? Greek? Okay. Now what about the Old Testament? What was that mostly written in? Hebrew. Okay? Now, does anyone know what the Septuagint is? Is the Septuagint the New Testament or the Old Testament? Anyone know? Getting on here. Yeah, Old Testament, okay? But it is the Greek translation of the Old Testament. That's what Septuagint is, okay? New Testament was written in Greek, Old Testament in Hebrew, and then the Hebrew Old Testament was eventually translated into Greek called the Septuagint, okay? Now, in Hebrew, there's a few words for blessing. The primary word, the word that's often used, would be braka or baruch. And this would be the word that you would use if you wanted to pronounce a blessing upon someone or something. For example, Genesis 1, God created all these things and then he blessed it. Okay, he baruch or braka it. Okay, or when you, like even today, like if someone sneezes, you might say, God bless you. This would be that word in Hebrew. It would be braka or baruch. Even every night, every single night, I'll pray over my kids the same blessing that Moses gave to the Israelites in the wilderness, right? May the Lord bless you and keep you. May make his face, blah, 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 blah. I say the whole thing, but I don't say blah, blah, blah. So it's the same idea, right? It's a baruch or braka, okay? However, here's what's interesting. Throughout the Septuagint, okay, so when the Hebrew Old Testament was translated into Greek, throughout the Septuagint, makarios, which is used here in Matthew 5, is not the word used in the place of the Hebrew word baruch. Okay, track with me, stay with me here. I know we're getting into it here. Makarios is actually used for a different Hebrew word for blessing, which is ashrei. Okay, ashrei. Everyone say ashrei. Ashrei. Now here's the difference, okay? Baruch is the blessing that someone has. What they have is a thing. It's a blessing. It's a baruch, okay? Ashrei is the perception that someone has about somebody else because of their baruch. Okay, now, here's what I mean. When you call someone ashrei, you aren't asking God to bless them. Okay, that would be baruch. When you call someone ashrei, you are pronouncing that they are already blessed. You're saying that from your perspective, that person over there, they are so blessed. They are so ashrei. I mean, just look at their life and everything they have. They got it going on. They got it all. And if you asked, why do they have it all? What makes them ashrei? You would say it's because of their blessings, their baruch. Okay? So why would someone be pronounced as blessed? Why would they be pronounced as ashrei? Because they have received blessings, baruch. Okay? Kind of making sense so far? No? Great. Okay. Now, all the way through the Beatitudes, all the way through what we just read in Matthew 5, Jesus uses makarios, which is the Greek equivalent to the Hebrew word ashrei, the perception someone has about someone else's situation. Interesting, then, from Jesus' perspective, what he's saying here is those people who are truly ashrei, blessed, are those who are poor in spirit. It's those who are meek. It's those who mourn. Completely different from the world's perspective on those we would consider blessed, isn't it? Ashrei are the poor in spirit. Blessed are the poor in spirit. How fortunate are those who are poor in spirit. Congratulations to those of you who are poor in spirit. This is what Jesus says to this crowd in front of him. Why? Because it's these kinds of people who will ultimately receive the Baruch, the blessing, which is the kingdom that he has come to establish. So real quick, let's break down this first phrase, poor in spirit. I'm not going to do it with all of them. We'll do it with the first one, though. Poor in spirit, real quick. There's two trains of thoughts here with the first word, poor. Okay? There's a religious connotation to it, or understanding, and then there's an economic connotation. So if you're poor religiously, right, I think we can easily relate to this concept of being somewhat poor in your faith, maybe like an understanding, maybe you're in doubt, maybe you're just struggling with some things, maybe you're just in low status at that time. But then there's also the economic understanding, poor economically, which we can also relate to, right? Or maybe more impoverished. There's always going to be someone better off, which may not be poor, but actual poverty here. And I think what Jesus is doing here is both are met. Both can be understood in this situation. And both were clearly experienced by this entire crowd. There's a whole lot of poor people in both ways, religiously and economically, that Jesus is talking to. And then you have the second word, spirit, okay, which is not meant to be understood as like the spiritual realm, but I think what he's talking about is some kind of concept of like your spirit, or we might even use the phrase like maybe our life energy, like the what we're able to move forward in life with, right? Sometimes our spirits are up, sometimes our spirits are low. Not necessarily it's talking about angels or demons, but just your life energy, so to speak, if that makes sense. It's basically your ability to get up and do something in this world. And sometimes we're really poor in that sense of our spirit. So putting this all together, Jesus says, congratulations, you who are poor in your ability to get up and do something. Blessed are the poor in spirit. But this is not a position, I want to be clear, that we should wish upon someone else. Okay, I'm not praying over you that you would become poor in spirit. Okay? And I don't think Jesus is either. I don't think that's what he's trying to say here. I think what he's saying those that find themselves in these circumstances already, look out, because he's got good news for you. Because yours is the kingdom of heaven. Tim Mackey and the Bible Project, they like to translate this idea of ashrei, or blessed are the, as, they'll use this phrase a lot, the good life. Which I think is an interesting idea too. So the question, because we relate to that, is this pursuit that we live in of, or at least our culture lives in, of the good life. We want a better form of the good life, a higher quality form of the good life. Interesting idea. So the question then is, what is the good life? Because each person kind of means something different, right? I even asked my now 9-year-old, Naomi, turns 9 today, which is incredible, and didn't deliver her, but I sure 9 today. So I asked her not too long ago, hey, I was curious. I said, hey, Naomi, what is the good life to you? Just kind of a fun question to ask people too. So great conversation starter. Hey, what's the good life mean to you, right? And she said, well, she thought about it. She goes, I would say going to sleepovers and the lake house. I was like, okay, yeah, I can relate to one of those at least, but that's great. And so it's interesting, everyone's concept of the good life is slightly different. You know, I actually took Naomi to a varsity basketball game a couple of months back at Urbandale. And it was kind of like, she plays basketball, so it was like their team's night to go for free. So we got to go and we got some popcorn and sat and watched the game and saw some of her friends. And she got to walk out on court and leave. It was a really fun experience for her. We get home. And Wrigley, her younger sister by 2 years, was just so bummed that she didn't get to go. Like, truly, like, just brokenhearted that she was kind of left out. Ezra, the younger brother, didn't care. And but Wrigley was hurt by it. The next day, not as a way to, like, make it up for her, but I needed to go to Home Depot, and so I asked her, I said, hey, you want to go with me? And I thought that was a fair trade, right? Get involved, you know? Makes sense to me. But she was all about it. and she was excited to go on this short trip with Dad to Home Depot. We get there, and the only reason she wanted to go, I found out, is because they have those really big suckers. And as soon as we got in the store, front door, and she goes, "Hey, Dad, can we buy a sucker?" I was like, "Sure, let's get a sucker." And she goes, "Can we go on for Ezra too?" I was like, "Sure, why not?" She didn't ask about Naomi, interesting. But anyway, so we got a couple suckers, and we did our stuff at Home Depot, came home, and Naomi was brokenhearted that she didn't get to go to Home Depot and get some suckers and go on this whole trip with Dad, because Dad's awesome, right? And I'm kidding. They think I'm awesome right now. They're still too young. Both girls were sad that they didn't get what the other person had. They looked at each other's situation and they thought, what they have is the good life. I want that. They got it going on. This is what they might call, they are the blessed ones, so to speak. The way we talk about this today in our culture is we might say something like, "Hey, you know who's killing it in life?" Have you heard that before, that phrase? It's kind of the way some younger generation will talk about it. You know who's killing it in life? It's those who blah, 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 right? And what Jesus is doing here is redefining our understanding of those who are killing it in life. He's saying the important ones, or he's saying the unimportant ones. Those are the ones that are blessed. Those who are poor in spirit, they are blessed by God. It's not the wealthy. It's not the powerful. It's not the important ones. Jesus is flipping the cultural standard here of what the good life is. And the crowd goes, "Wait, who are the blessed ones? Could I be included in that too?" I want to go back to being ultra clear on what Jesus is not saying. Listen carefully. Jesus is not saying that we should leave here today and go and strive to become poor in spirit people. It's not what he's saying. What he's saying is the good life is for these kinds of people who already are or have experienced these things. Now, you might be tempted to read these Beatitudes and think, if this is the good life, well, that's what I want, so that's what I'm going to strive to be. And that would be close, but it would still be missing the mark. That's not what Jesus is saying. And this is the challenge, isn't it? So, okay, how then are those who are the healthy and the wealthy and the powerful supposed to respond to this? Because let's be honest, church, that's us here today. That's us here today. You may not feel all that healthy. You may not feel all that wealthy. You may not feel all that important, but compared to who Jesus is actually referring to, the world we live in, the culture we live in here today, if you are here in this building, if you sleep in a home with a bed and you are going to eat some food after this, you are healthy and you are wealthy, okay? So then the question then becomes, if we can just move past that for a second, because I don't want you to sit here and argue with that. Go, "Jared, you don't understand my situation. I'm the most poor person in this room." I'm like, I get it. Let's just accept right now. Let's just come with me. We're all healthy and wealthy. Okay, that's us, okay? Yes, grass always greener, you can always be more. Don't do that. Accept that. Compared to who Jesus is talking to, especially who Jesus is talking to, that's us today. So the challenge then becomes, if you've accepted that, the challenge then becomes, how do we, as the healthy and wealthy, respond to this kind of a passage? Listen, Jesus didn't say these things so that his followers would then aspire to become poor and aspire to become outcasts and aspire to become sick. This is about aspiring to become the right kind of person. So aspire less to become healthy and wealthy and powerful, because of what you think that does for a better quality of life, or what you think that does for leaving some crazy legacy or some kind of thing for the next generations to come. It's not about aspiring to those kinds of things. That is not and should not be the primary focus for those of us who claim to follow and walk in Christ's way. It's not about ourselves. These temporary shells that you and I are walking around in, that we were given to steward, it's not about taking care of, number one. Instead, the only kind of person that we are to aspire to be is Jesus. And if you look at Jesus' life, is there anyone who understood poverty and mourning and meekness better than he? And it's not because he aspired to those things himself, but because what he aspired to become was, or to be, to communicate, to bring to this world. He aspired to love. He aspired to serve. He aspired to give of himself for others. He aspired to die to himself and his own feelings and his own wants, even though Philippians 2, it's very clear. If you haven't read that, go back and read that. He aspired to the cross. And striving toward those kinds of things, I think naturally will often lead to, not always, but often lead to maybe experiencing what it looks like to be poor in spirit. And you're going to experience meekness. And you're going to experience what it means to mourn. You're going to experience all these things. That's what this is about. And if you strive to become more like Jesus, that's what you're going to naturally gain. But the irony is that if and when you decide to live like you have less because you're giving it all away, what you're going to receive in joy and in peace and in love, you're going to receive in abundance. Blessed are you. But all of that isn't even the point of this passage. Sorry, I said all that. I'm just warning you not to do what is so easily the temptation to do, which is to read this and to think only about ourselves and what it means. How can I become this thing if that's what it means to be blessed? Blessed are the poor in spirit, for they will receive the kingdom of God. So then you might be thinking, well, I know what being poor in spirit feels like, and it sure doesn't feel like blessing. Listen, like I said, Jesus isn't saying people whose lives are terrible are the blessed ones. Your current conditions of poverty, of stress, of anxiety, of being overworked, your current situations of addiction, that's not the good life. That's not what he's saying. The reason Jesus considers those who are poor in spirit to be blessed is because Jesus' kingdom is for those kinds of people. And so he's extending an invitation for them to join it. Yes, Jesus came for all people, including the well-off, but typically, this is going to be hard for some of us today, typically the well-off are too self-sufficient to really need Jesus, if we're being honest. So yeah, Jesus came for all people, but when we read about his life and ministry throughout the Gospels, it's pretty clear that Jesus was focused on extending this invitation to certain kinds of people. I think of the lame man by the pool of Bethsaida. Familiar with this story, some of us? Right? He was laid there for 38 years. That's a crazy long time to not go anywhere, to not be able to walk. I'm not even that old. Think back to how old you were 38 years ago. That whole time frame that you've experienced life, you've gone on trips and you've made career accomplishments, and some of you have retired and you've had kids and you've had grandkids, you've lived the whole life. He laid there day after day for 38 years. And then this man Jesus comes up to him and says, "Hey, do you want to get well? Are you interested in getting better?" And then so Jesus heals this man, and he picks up his mat and he walks off. And then the religious people, these Pharisees, kind of look at the situation, and because it was the Sabbath, and they don't do anything on the Sabbath, no one's allowed to do anything, including carry a mat. They come to this man, and they say, "Hey, who told you? Who do you think you are? Who told you you can pick up your mat and walk?" And honestly, the guy didn't know. If you look at the story, the guy's like, I don't know. The guy back there said I could. Or I think of the blind man, also in John. And Jesus just got done saying that, talking about the darkness, and he's saying, "I am the lights of the world. And then he spits in the ground, creates some mud, and he wipes it on this man's eyes. And kind of almost looks like it doesn't work, and then he does it again, then he figures it out and whatever. And then this guy can see all of a sudden, right? And this guy was born that way, blind. And he's now finally of age. He was still young, and he kind of goes off on his way, and he's able to see. He's able to finally see people and see color and see his family, see his mom. Like, he's able to see all these things. The religious people come up to him, and they're like, "Hey, who told you that you're able to do that? Who healed you?" And the kid didn't know. If you look at it in John, he goes, I don't know, honestly. But the guy back there said I could. I think of the two criminals on the cross, right? And then Jesus is up on the cross with them, and he's right in the middle, and one on each side. And one of them starts mocking him, right? And he's just like, "You said you're the Messiah. Can't you just save yourself?" Ha ha ha. The other one, he goes, "Are you kidding me? Like, you know, you and I are guilty. We belong up here. This guy was innocent. He did nothing." What does Jesus tell him? "Today you will be with me in paradise." I can't imagine what it was like for that criminal to get up to the gates, pearly gates, right? And see Peter. Peter's like, weren't you just who told you could be up here? And I wonder if he was like, "I don't know. But the man on the cross said I could." Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And Jesus stood right there in front of that crowd, and he extended the same invitation to them that day. And today, that same invitation is extended to you too. To those of you who are far off, who knows what it feels like to be ill, severely in pain, maybe demon-possessed. Those of you who are far from Christ and have never claimed him as Lord, because maybe you've just from the beginning felt disqualified. The same invitation stands for you today. And you know what? If you accept it, there's going to be people in your life who are going to say something like, "You're not a churchgoer. That's not you. You're not have you become one of those religious people? What is this all about? What are you doing? Who do you think you are?" And you know what you get to say to them? "That man up there said I could. The man on the cross said I could." In church, for maybe many of you today, this doesn't relate to you because you came to Christ a long time ago. But I promise you, there's a world around you you know very closely, very intimately, friends and family and neighbors, who are far, far from knowing Jesus, and probably will never ask you because they already feel disqualified. It's not their responsibility to ask you about your faith. It's your responsibility to let them know that Jesus' invitation stands for them too. That he said they could. So go and get them. Stop waiting. Stop coming here every Sunday by yourself. There's a world around you that needs to hear it too. Let me pray for you. Father, I thank you for this morning. I thank you for your word. I thank you for the beginning of the greatest sermon ever told. Lord, I thank you for this invitation you've extended to each one of us who are so fallen and have come so short of being perfect. Not even close, Father. We are sinful people, and Father, you've extended an invitation to us to receive forgiveness and to receive grace and to be made new, to be born again, and to have a new identity in you. Father, we thank you and praise you for that we too could be included in your kingdom. Lord, now help us to share that story and to brag about this message, this gospel that you've left us to extend to others, so that the world around us, our friends and family, can hear it too and know that they also can experience the good life that is found in you. Father, help this church to be bold, to not just wait or to stay comfortable in their daily and weekly routines, but to speak boldly about their faith in you. Father, we thank you, we love you. In your son's name we pray.